Okay, John Martin's here with Montgomery County Tea Party, and we're here with John Escoto. He's running for Shenandoah City Council Position 3. Also with me are David Smith, Billy Graff, Bob Bagley, Pat Tibbs, and Dennis Tibbs. Welcome. And thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks for putting your name in the hat for the council. As we just discussed, if you want to start off with up to a 5-minute overview, and then we'll jump into the Q&A after that.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to answer your questions. My name is John Escoto. I'm a 10-year resident of Shenandoah. This is the second time I faced this board. I don't know if you all recall, but I ran in 2013, and I went through the same process then. A little background on myself. I'm a 32-year retired law enforcement officer, starting as a young military policeman back in 1973. After my Army stint, I became a deputy sheriff and detective in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, just outside of New Orleans, if you're familiar with that area. After that, I went to the state police and became a Louisiana state trooper and a detective also in that department. And positions opened up back in '85. The federal government started hiring, they needed agents. That's when we were fighting the drug war. So I had an opportunity to join U.S. Customs as a special agent. And I spent the rest of my law enforcement career in U.S. Customs as a criminal investigative special agent. And as a result of 9/11, our section of U.S. Customs got merged with immigration, and we became ICE back in 2003. I retired in 2005 from the federal government. I then worked for U.S. Treasury as a consultant, a contracted advisor to Latin American countries. Because I am fluent in Spanish, I advised South and Central American countries on how to conduct criminal investigations related to drug smuggling, money laundering, corruption, things of that nature. Spent 7 years doing that, and then I decided to just completely retire, which I have enjoyed since 2012. And I've been involved in Shenandoah politics. I know a lot of the people, neighbors and friends who are members of the council, and other people who support the council and local politics. I've been involved in the community in that way. Also, I've served as on many elections. I've served as a poll worker here from Montgomery County. I'd say the last five or 6 years we've been doing just about every election. And there's an opportunity now that Dean Christie, who was filling position number 3 in Shenandoah, has moved out of the city, so that seat became open. So I decided to go ahead and throw my hat in the ring to become more involved. The last 10 months or so, I was appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I've been doing that since then. And presently still assigned to it. I'm 70 years old, I'm married, I have 3 grown children and 2 granddaughters. And that's it.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in the Q&A part, under the 3 most pressing issues in Shenandoah, You mentioned traffic congestion, inconsistent electrical power. I think we all faced that a little bit during this Valentine's Day freeze, and city growth. On traffic congestion, it seems to me whenever I'm around that area, one road that I think would eliminate a lot of the traffic on the service roads, feeders, especially around Methodist Hospital. What is the status of David Elementary? And what, have y'all finished, has Shenandoah finished their part? And what can the city do to motivate Conroe and Montgomery County, and who else is involved in that to get that completed? Because I think that'd take a lot of pressure off.
You mean David Memorial?
Yes, David Memorial.
That road behind by the stadium?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah, not elementary,
Right.
but more.
Well, that, I know that Shenandoah has been lobbying Conroe, the city of Conroe, and Montgomery County. And I understand that both are on board, and both have pledged funds towards the completion of that. Methodist Hospital has also given the right-of-way, because part of that, the roadway will be on part of their property, so they have given the right-of-way to that. I understand that the only thing that we're pending are the permits from the Corps of Engineers, because that is a wetland that it's right smack in the middle of where the roadway is planned. So hopefully, if the Corps of Engineers is timely with their permits, the city should be sending out bids to initiate the project.
What is timely? We all know how the government works. I mean, you more than
Yes,
anybody.
well, the expectation is that sometime this year, before the end of the year.
Oh, really? Oh.
Because if I understand, and I don't know this for a fact, but when it comes to wetlands and the Corps of Engineers would want to make some sort of a study. Those studies take time. They have to dedicate funds to conduct a study. So it just slows the wheel of progress down.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully, by the end of the year, there should be some resolution.
Okay, I'll come back to that because I want to know who's going to construct that at the end of the day. If it's all 3 or 4 of those entities involved in that. But David, do it.
Continuing that topic, I wasn't going to ask this question, but since you brought it up. So, the Houston-Galveston Area Council, they award about, back in 2 years ago, they awarded $700 million in federal funds for construction of projects in the metro area. And Shenandoah actually submitted David Memorial to get for the federal government to pay for 8% of their road expansion. And there was an elaborate application process. And so it turns out that the HGAC didn't like the results when you added up all the numbers. So they took 5 Montgomery County projects, including David Memorial, and changed the application numbers so they would lose. So, what would be reaction to, Montgomery County got basically 2 out of 5 projects, about $40 million, including the David Memorial project.
You're asking my opinion?
Yeah.
Well, that's, I don't understand why they would do that. I mean, it's, the studies that the engineer, the city engineer has done, has shown, actually convinced both the county and the city of Conroe that this is a feasible thing, that this would alleviate, congestion. It would benefit everybody. So I just don't understand why the government.
And by the application submitted by Shenandoah, according to the guidelines established by the HGAC, they won the contest.
Yes.
But they changed the numbers. So that Shenandoah,
Change the numbers that Shenandoah submitted.
change the numbers that Shenandoah submitted, so they would lose. I can show you that, you know, it might be something you want to talk about. I have
Got
a,
100
I
slides.
got 100 slides that basically
That would be something to address. you know,
demonstrate, you
Definitely
know.
address.
And one councilman I've actually talked to about it, you know, he sat through the discussion, I think Penny, I forget the guy's name, off the top of my head, I'll look in my calendar. So, have another question? I'll go around once. I'll go around next time, go ahead.
What are some initiatives that you would like to bring to the table for the council to consider that would allow, which would better the community of Shenandoah?
Well, I would encourage, well, in my position now, as a commissioner in the planning and zoning, you know, we're working on this, on updating the comprehensive plan, the 10-year comprehensive plan that the council approved 10 years ago, 2010. So in our recommendations, we are preparing for the possible change in our city status. We're still waiting for the results of the census that would give us a firmer number as to our population. As you may or may not know, 5,000 population changes our status from a general rule city to a home rule. And so that would give us an opportunity, if we reach that goal, that will give us an opportunity to expand, you know, move towards our ETJs. In our case, our only way to go is east, because we're closed up in the west by the woodlands. So my recommendation to the council would be, and still is at this point, is to start planning for that event. And this is something that we at the commission are going to start doing, is starting to look at the zoning, changing the way it is zoned now because of the restrictions of the ETJ, and to open it up to see how we can improve, how we can bring more either industry or commercial or residential to the extension of the ETJ.
Good.
Bob.
I'm going to go back to the original topic because it is an issue over there for David Memorial. This has been looked at for a number of years. I don't know who had the lead on this. I've sat in on the planning meetings with y'all. I've sat in on the city council meetings, and knowing that that's wetlands, somebody dropped the ball in not making sure that the federal government was involved in that, in making sure that we could go through the wetlands. We ended up, I know it had to, some of it was, our holdback at one time, or the holdback at one time was the hospital. The city was on board and then went back, and then the county didn't have the funds, and then they said they'd fund it. Then it's opening on to 242, so then you have to have the state's approval and TxDOT as well, since it's going to change the traffic pattern there. It's just been an ongoing thing, and we need to have, are you willing to push this to be able to get this taken care of? Because if I'm not mistaken, the majority of the work on David Memorial has already been done by the city of Shenandoah, and the rest of it is up to the other three entities to be able to move forward. But Shenandoah is running with the ball. Am I not correct?
Yes, you are correct. I think the Shenandoah part extends, if you're familiar with the area there, extends to where the roundabout is.
Right.
And just a bit beyond the roundabout.
Where they've already developed all of that.
Exactly. So that's, that part is completed. Now it's just organizing the rest of it, you know, to go over the wetlands.
Right.
How far is that, where the end of, just beyond roundabout to 242? Is that a mile or half a mile?
I don't think it's a mile.
About a half a mile.
It's
Half a mile.
yeah, maybe a little short of a
Yeah.
half a mile or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's it. I just wanted to know if he's willing to
So can I
push
push
this.
back on
Oh,
that,
yes,
since
I
you
would
got
support
about
it.
a minute left?
Yeah.
Just who would construct that? I mean, if it's approved by the Army Corps, who's gonna build that? Is
It's
it
gonna
gonna be
go out-
different
go out for
contractors?
bid.
It'll be one contractor under the supervision. Right now, I shouldn't answer this, it's your call. But the city of Shenandoah.
But it would be, Shenandoah would have our city engineer would be, I guess, the lead, and it would be contracted out for construction.
Okay. And then just build the other entities being Conroe, the hospital, I guess, and the county.
Right.
Those three, okay.
And the role of the hospital, again, is just, getting it right.
Does Sam Moon have any role in this at all?
Not in this, not in this project.
Yeah, okay, all right. Dennis?
Okay, I see that you've contributed to Trump, and we've got all sorts of local and state elections. Have you contributed to or publicly supported any of the candidates for state rep or senator, commissioner, sheriff, constable, any of those local
Oh, yes,
offices?
you know, John and I had been texting one another, and I filled out that form like within an hour and a half of the deadline of 9 o'clock. So my first few answers were brief, because I wanted to make sure I met the.
They were pithy. They're shorter than our questions.
So Trump was, I had to get that in there, but yes. Yes, I've supported Brady. I've even supported Crenshaw. And he's not even in our, he's totally another district. I like him, he's a veteran, he's just my kind of guy.
Have you supported the state of Texas reps and senators?
Yes,
We've got three reps right in this area.
yes, well, Steve Toth,
Yeah.
definitely, yes.
Alrighty, that can be a nasty business. You're in James's county precinct 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Shenandoah's got we're like three, we're split into
3 corners.
3 corners there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know that or Charlie Riley? Probably Charlie Riley.
Well, I'm on the east side of 45,
Oh,
so that's Riley, I believe. Isn't that? Am I wrong? I think.
No.
Was Metz in there?
No.
if you're on the east side, that's probably.
Yeah.
No, on the
That's
west
fine.
side, on the west side of 45.
Oh, west.
You're on the west side of 45.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the east side is still NOAC.
Just not Metz?
No.
Metz further off?
Metz is across the railroad tracks where I live.
Okay.
Well, maybe they'll fix some of that when they redraw the lines.
Alrighty, thanks.
So on the budget, let's say ask, what is the current budget surplus? And I don't know if I saw them out there, and should any of it be returned to the residents? You said reduction in fees would be a way of returning surplus. First of all, do you know what that surplus is?
It's about 3 million.
3, okay. And reducing outstanding debts and rainy day funds seem appropriate. So how much would you trim debt-wise, give back to the people? How much would you keep in the rainy day fund? Say something came up or whatnot.
Numbers, I haven't thought about numbers, but I would definitely, my concern would be to start paying off outstanding debts. So the bulk of whatever surplus there is year after year would go towards that. The other would be to return to the residents in some way. Short of cutting a check and sending them a check back, reducing fees, reducing services, would be my second choice.
So what is, okay, so you got a 3 million surplus, do you know what the outstanding debt is right
I think it's probably short of, I want to say it's I saw a number, but not recent. I want to say maybe 20 million, short of 20 million maybe. I'm not really certain.
now? Okay. Is a lot of that geared towards infrastructure, water towers?
I believe so, yes.
You know,
Historic, that was a debt that was incurred, in the past.
in the past?
Yeah.
Any major issues coming up right now?
As far as,
Sewer systems?
Capital improvements?
Water, yeah, capital anything.
as capital improvements are always an ongoing thing, so there's always projects that will need to be handled up. Now, this past year, I know the city has incurred some costs, from, water tower maintenance and, park maintenance and, or improvements and things of that nature.
So that would be incorporated in that 20 million?
Part of it would be, part of it is budgeted, But if something pops up like that, then it's, like you say the water tower, that's an expense that was covered with dedicated funds.
Yeah, okay.
So Shenandoah is a very nice, single-family home community. And I was sort of surprised that they, the last few years approved the construction of, 1,400 apartment units. And the interest of those who might dwell in their apartments compared to they might, live in single-family homes. Does that concern you any, that we're gonna end up with a real conflict in the city?
Not really, because the areas where these apartment buildings are being constructed are zoned for that. So they're not gonna be in and amongst, single dwelling homes. Take the new project that's going on near Memorial Garden. That is far away, that's across the research forest from the closest residence. So that's gonna be a standalone apartment complex with all the amenities included in there. Which is a great way for the city to generate revenues as well. The other apartment complex, that's the big one, that's on east of 45, that's away also from any residential, single dwelling area. So as far as building, conflict with single dwelling or multiple dwelling residences, they're being kept to the zoning regulations.
But doesn't, I've heard previous speakers from Shenandoah talk about, like you said, reducing fees like trash and stuff like that, but why would the citizens of an apartment complex reduce those type of fees that may be favored by homeowners? It seems like they're gonna vote a different type of person in compared to someone who wants to represent the interest of homeowners.
It is a concern, it's a valid point. But I would look at, if I was a council member, I would look at which one would benefits the city more by way of revenue. That's something that I would study more before approving, multiple dwelling homes. As you know, that those permits were granted way before I even threw my hat in the ring, but it would be something to consider, yes.
As a sitting councilman, what do you believe and feel like is really the most important thing that you can do for the community? It's one thing to run and get on the council, that's great. but not just why do you want to run, but what do you think the most important aspect of being a councilman is? Because I think that kind of defines how one would operate as a councilman.
My primary concern would be the status of the budget. I'm naturally, by nature, a frugal person. So, I question expenses. And to me, that would be the most important thing that the residents would benefit from, is just a very strong monitoring of how the money is being spent.
Do you think the current board is doing that now?
The council?
Yeah.
I think so. I think they're doing a good job. Given circumstances, this past year has been hard on everybody, so, sales taxes and hotel taxes and all of that has been impacted severely by the COVID situation. So this past year, it's been a little hard as far as revenues are concerned, but, yeah, I think so.
As the city continues to grow, crime continues to grow as well, even in Shenandoah. Do you see a point in time where you're gonna have to start adding more law enforcement?
I think so, if our population keeps increasing, and I think so. I think I think it's a necessary thing. I really do. There is more crime, as straddling a major highway like 45. Crime patterns are such that anybody from anywhere can come up the highway, commit the crime, and get back on the highway and head south again. I mean, that's a big issue. We have a great group of police officers in Shenandoah, very professional, well-trained, and very responsive. I would work hard to keep that, blue is in my blood, so I would 100% support law enforcement.
So I think I got a little bit of time, yeah, so at one point, they were using licensed cops to enforce the codes, and enforce grass cutting and stuff like that. Do you know if that's still currently going on, or?
That's no longer the case.
Okay.
The officer that was assigned to do that is back
On patrol.
doing patrol duties.
Okay.
Now there is a dedicated employee that is a non-law enforcement person who is authorized to enforce codes.
So is there only one? Because at one time when we were discussing, like when you ran the last time, they were looking at having two people to do that, and that was gonna take another cop off of the street, and that was not a wise decision, but.
For right now,
It
it's
didn't
one.
happen, okay.
For one, yeah. It depends on the need.
Right.
At this point, one was determined to be the.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, some recent legislation now requires when cities annex people that they have a vote. So do you know which groups have to vote within your ETJ or outside your ETJ? Or can you expand your ETJ with public vote, or how does that work?
Well, as far as the process, I'm not familiar with how the process would work, but it wouldn't be an issue like eminent domain or anything like that. They would have some say-so as to whether they would be a part of. I would assume. I'm not really sure on how the process works, but that's something that I would have a problem with if it was claimed just as straight out eminent domain.
Which it used to be, but I think it's not that way now.
Yeah.
And you mentioned here that any entity wanting to develop would incur a fee to offset the extension of services. Doesn't the state require if a city annexes that they provide services within some specific amount of time?
It would, but that limits, it's not, if it does, it doesn't include commercial and industrial.
Just for
It
residential?
would be, if it exists, it's for residential. But if a commercial project would want to build in that extension of the ETJ, they would have to incur a fee, which would then be used to contribute to expand any municipal services into that area.
What's the square miles of Shenandoah, you know?
I'd say about 2.1,
Really?
2.2 maybe.
How about the ETJ? Do you have any idea what that is?
No, I haven't, I don't. I mean, I've seen the map, but it would make it, I would imagine it would make it a good 3.8 maybe. If we did extend outward.
Maybe not quite double it, huh?
No, I don't think quite.
Okay. All right.
So that's basically about double, then, pretty much, right?
It would be, yeah, not quite, depending on how far we go past the railroad tracks.
Okay, so you're about 60% built out now. I would think it would be higher than that, but maybe not. Everything's gonna be over on the east side, right?
If we extend, yes.
Yeah, and how much of that is wetlands? Because it seems like just driving down David, Memorial, that a lot of that on the right and possibly what was maybe on the left cut through there. I don't know if there had to be waivers and exemptions or transfers to put what's in there now.
Yeah, I think that according to the Corps of Engineers, that would limit any kind of construction or anything on either side of the slough there, because
Right.
it's gonna be protected all the way down to the river.
In normal times, how much was revenue from sales tax, say, versus property tax percent-wise?
Well, last year, revenue from sales was the high, well, that was the bulk of the revenue for the city. It was about 40 to 41%.
Oh, really?
Sales tax, probably between 14, property tax, probably about 14-15%
Okay.
in the neighborhood.
Okay.
So can I tag on to that one?
Yep.
So this came up in discussion, again, the last time we met, maybe not with you, but for the council. Do you feel that there's a probability, or would you support doing away with property taxes completely, if you could, because there's enough revenue coming from retail?
I think that if the revenue was more overwhelming than what it is now, that could be something that could be visited. I don't know how, to what extent, how much a cut, whether reducing it all or a portion of it would be appropriate, but depending on how.
There's about
How it balances
14 cities in Texas that have done that. Stafford's one of the largest that did it, and it hasn't hurt their growth or anything at all by doing that. So it was just, I think you might want to look at it.
Yeah, it would be something to look at, but presently, by the numbers that I recall seeing, with a surplus of that we have, like we had last year, probably would not be enough to offset it. You see what I'm saying? There would have to be, to me, in my view, would have to be probably more than 41% of the revenue in order to consider that. But it is a thought, yes.
So does that include, just to piggyback on top of that, we got about 10 minutes, Does that include sales tax in general and hotel tax all lumped in together?
No, that's
or-
different.
Okay,
That's a different percentage,
'Cause if you-
hotel and,
yeah, you combine both of those, could you then execute what Bob's talking about, do away with property tax?
yes, there would be, but you have a more or less a fixed amount that's coming in sales tax, where you have probably a figure that's more intangible in hotel tax, based on, you're relying on who's gonna stay in a hotel for how long, et cetera. So that number is gonna fluctuate more than a general sales tax number would. So that would, another thing that you would have to consider, whether that amount is gonna offset.
And then you have state restrictions on the use of hotel tax.
Exactly, yes.
So, you were the planning board,
Yes.
and, as you look at your ETG, it's basically an east group growth potential. And you have the historically black community of Tamina out there who has sewer and water problems.
Mhm.
So have you you have any thoughts about how that community, its relationship with Shenandoah as you expand east?
So far, my understanding is, and I know that I've been involved in, through the Planning and Zoning Board, in discussions about growth off of Tamina Road. We would definitely have to, have serious talks with the elders of the community, the pastor, the seniors, who have the community's interest at heart, in order to bring them in, or rather, be part of Shenandoah. There are issues, with property ownership out there. The community is, as you know, goes back such a long way that it's hard to get titles for the property.
There's titles, yeah.
And it's hard to track them down. I mean, it's, who owns what and when did they acquire it? So that's an issue that's gonna have to be addressed also with the community. But bringing them on board would be something that, we would have to have, consent of, the community. I know that they could use, city services, a lot better, but, so that would be a benefit for them,
They do have water service.
They do have water service.
Yeah, we provide that, but they don't have sewer.
Bill?
I'm good.
Bobby?
I want to discuss this afterwards.
Demus?
Did you find out how much this job pays?
Yes, I did.
How much is that?
It's about 10,200 maybe a year,
Whoops, say that again now?
10,000 a year.
For what?
For the salary in Shenandoah for council.
Oh, council. Is that
It's
include
just-
the medical, or is that not include medical?
Parking.
Parking.
Hey,
I think it does. Medical,
I think it does have medical for the
Council.
council member, not the family.
Not
Did the,
the what?
Not the family.
Oh.
Just the council.
Just the council member, okay, sorry.
did the city of Shenandoah impose any kind of COVID restrictions? Mask or operation limitations, stuff like that?
Not from the city, I don't believe. I think it was,
Was it a subject? Was it discussed? or
if
contemplated?
it was, I don't recall it being discussed. I think they just decided to abide by the state regulations.
They did enforce it though.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that's in HB3 that our legislature's working on would be a restriction that says, local government cannot impose restrictions stricter than what the state imposes. So, did you go along with that?
Yep. I do.
Okay.
You got any more questions?
Closing statements. Closing statements.
But Shenandoah did did enforce the mask mandate.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, how did they do that when the county said they're not gonna enforce it?
Well, they did,
Their city
I,
did.
I think the businesses, are you talking toward the citizens or
Well, the
the
government
residents
can't go
or?
out on the street, you know, we know that a business can say you can't shop here unless you wear a mask.
Right, right.
But can the government say you can't walk on my sidewalk unless you wear a mask?
But they weren't enforcing anything like that. I walk my dog twice a day and I.
Neither of you wear a mask.
No. Not throughout the whole thing. Neither one of us wore masks.
All right, that's all I have.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Okay, if you want, you got any more?
No.
Okay, John, if you want to go ahead and close out with a closing.
Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity for me to answer your questions, and I hope I answered them adequately, enough to get your support anyway.
All right, well, appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Again, thank you.